Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we talk about the impact of diversion on crime and public health. And diversion is an interesting point because very few people know what it is. Well, our guest grew up around the struggles with addiction, mental illness, and the criminal justice system. It sparked her passion for psychology and human behavior. Shelley Gibson, with a master's in community psychology and training as a peer recovery coach, shares the importance of diversion efforts in building healthy and resilient communities. Shelby, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have grown up in Story County my entire life. We've moved around a lot. Both my parents struggled with addiction. And so because of that, there was a lot of moving, a lot of I'd say chaos within my life. So lots of different schools, moving to family within the foster care system. So I have a little sprinkle of everything. I like to say, what's your flavor? What's your trauma? I've got just about all of it, right? So because of that, I think it used to be something I viewed as something that held me back in life, but it actually has helped me so much in my career and has helped me connect with people that I help, because I can really relate, especially with poverty and the struggles of mental health. I like to say unmet mental health needs because I think we all have mental health needs. I think that this population of people that struggle with addiction, it's just another version of unmet mental health needs. Of all the people I've helped with substance abuse disorder, I have yet to find anyone who isn't struggling with an unmet mental health need. So that being said, I think that was really, like you said, what sparked my interest in psychology and understanding why we do, what makes humans tick. And I think anyone that goes into psychology really wants to understand their parents and themselves. And so that was really my ignite, what ignited me and my passion. But I think just as I followed my passion and helping people, it kept the fuel going. It really fueled that fire within me. And so as I meet people, as this continues to grow, I feel Iowa is really taking the steps in helping their citizens and finding, I would just say, more effective solutions to this problem. We can't just keep putting a Band-Aid on it or dismissing these individuals that this is just a choice or that there isn't anything we can do. There's so much we can do to help one another. And I work a lot with families as well as the people themselves. So, there's a lot of instruction you can give to parents to help their children. I think a big thing I see over and over, and I even saw it in my own family, is we want to just save our children. We always want to swoop in and just kind of fix things rather than watch them struggle through this. And that's something that I really encourage people not to do. We need to work through difficult situations in life in order to learn and grow. And like I said, I think that's what helped me become successful in my career, is having to work through really difficult situations my entire life. And now I can navigate just about every professional situation with ease because it just doesn't quite compare in comparison, to what I had to go through growing up. So I went to Iowa State for psychology, and then after there, I went to a university in Chicago, National Louise University, for my master's in psychology. They don't really have a specialty, I guess, when it comes to a master's, but I focused on community psychology. That was where my interests were. I was worried about finding a job in Iowa because we aren't the most advanced when it comes to creating these types of programs like diversion and deflection. But luckily, there was a piloting program in my county. I was able to jump on board. But I think that, like I said, this is new to Iowa. We see this happening in a lot of states. They already have these programs up and running and they're functioning really well. And so it's exciting that we're at the front end of this. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Can you tell us a little bit about, for the person that may not know, what does diversion actually mean, other than just the word diversion? What does it mean in terms of societal efforts like the ones you are working on to help our communities?
Yeah. So I think something that people need to understand is the difference between deflection and diversion. So those are two really different concepts, but very related at the same time. So diversion is once a person has interacted with the police or the criminal justice system in general, whether that's leaving jail, prison, they're on probation, or like I said, they're having those frequent police run-ins. We are helping police connect that individual to the resources that they need. That may be with a pending charge that would eventually get dismissed when they meet program requirements, or it could be where a charge is sitting in abeyance. I don't know necessarily if I'm saying this word correctly, but it's kind of where the charge is floating and waiting to be passed on to the prosecutor's office. And so diversion, it's a broad concept, but essentially you have officers that are connecting these individuals with the community resources.
Well, we're going to dig into that a little bit more after a short break. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out, Trojan horse. That's why at Mediacom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, Rude Kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Shelley Gibson about the idea of diversion and interactions with the criminal justice system, things that are sort of emerging that are much more humane in terms of practices in helping people with mental illness and addiction. Shelby, tell us more about this idea of diversion.
Yeah. So before we left, we were talking about deflection and diversion and the difference. So deflection is really the act of steering people away from the criminal justice system. In the context of policing, deflection is when the police connect with an individual naturally in the community. They connect them with community-based treatment, housing, other services without pressing any charges or involving them in the criminal justice system at all. Diversion can have a few formats. One is pre-arrest diversion, which is when the police direct individuals to those same resources like treatment when they're facing criminal charges. And so they can choose to not press those charges. And those are typically simple misdemeanor, very low level victimless crimes like trespassing or public intox. And then there's post-arrest diversion, which comes from within the criminal justice system. So the charges have already been given to the individual, and participants are expected to complete a set of criteria in order to have those charges dismissed. So that might mean getting mental health treatment or substance abuse treatment before those charges are dismissed.
So for the most part, we've seen nationally, these things are popping up around the country. What kind of numbers are we seeing in terms of success when public safety takes to heart the idea that there's a diversion process that makes some sense to reduce the stress on the criminal justice system, the prisons, the jails, and things like that?
Yeah, so what is great is that there is some early data showing that when a person goes through a diversion program and completes all requirements, the recidivism rate is very low, 7%. For individuals who do not complete those requirements, so they're still struggling, they did not get the treatment they needed, 50%, so I think it was 48.8% of those individuals reoffend. And so it just shows how much something like this is needed, and that when the help is offered and it's given and a person is, I think when you walk alongside a person, you can really help them be more successful versus handing them a list of criteria and expecting them to get it done. I truly believe that most people entering the criminal justice system, if they knew better, they would do better. And that's sort of my philosophy. So we've got to help individuals know how to do better for themselves.
So, and it's not like a magic pill where just the police officer does this. There's quite a bunch of collaborators in a community that help sort of reinvent a person's life along a positive track. What kind of partners do you work with?
All kinds. So treatment providers are the main ones. And what's great is in our area, we have some substance abuse treatment providers that also provide mental health services, which is key, because you can address addiction, but if you don't address those underlying causes for use, inevitably they're going to use again. We work with mental health treatment providers, housing providers. We work with Good Neighbor, which is a local organization that helps with food and gas vouchers. There's grants available to help purchase a phone for an individual so that they can get these appointments made. And then also bus passes. Transportation is a major barrier for people getting to treatment and getting to, maybe an office to get some housing help. So we offer bus passes, monthly bus passes with the city bus so that individuals can get where they need to go.
So is it safe to take a look at this from the point of view that people that often have problems with addiction or interactions with the police and mental health are lacking resources? They're often under supported in the community, and the interaction with the criminal justice system is almost like a last resort.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's like a catch-all. Whatever the other services aren't providing, or if that person is getting missed somehow, the jail system is going to catch them. And I think it really shows in that, like I talked about that preliminary data, that 48.8% of people who did not complete the program and reoffended, they were the highest utilizers of all of those resources. So even though they had some of those things helping, sometimes it was just too little too late. The ball had already gotten rolling in the wrong direction. It's very hard to steer it back towards the right direction.
So when you talk to people that have been through these programs, have they had particularly less trouble getting reintegrated with family and friends, or is it through the same situations? What can somebody expect that might find themselves in the face of diversion when it comes to rebuilding their life?
Yeah, I think that one thing I have seen is a really positive attitude towards diversion programs from family and supports in that person's life. They finally feel supported in supporting that individual, the participant. And I think that's really important. The other thing is that the criminal justice system is very difficult to navigate. I really had no experience with it personally. I had watched my parents experience it. I don't think any person off the street is going to understand our criminal justice system very well. We don't get taught it well in school, and it's not a fun thing to try to navigate by yourself. It's very scary, and especially if you have a child going through it, it's even scarier.
Wow, this is some fascinating stuff. After a short break, we'll be back to continue our conversation about some of the barriers and community impact of diversion programs. See you after the break. You don't want to miss this.
You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs.
You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
You won't read about my mom in the history books, but she's gonna change history forever. You'll never learn about her in school, but she'll redefine everything we know. She's not a scientist or a doctor, but she's gonna help save a lot of lives. My mom works at MediaCom, and they're going to bring us one of the world's first 10G broadband platforms. Mom says, dream big.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. Our guest, Shelby Gibson, is a survivor of growing up around struggles with addiction, mental illness, and the criminal justice system. She's turned that experience into a passion for helping people. And she has some information and ideas that really enlighten the idea of diversion. Shelby, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about barriers, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, but I think it's important after talking about diversion and deflection, talking about the cost of that. So first, I want to give you some numbers on the cost of a diversion program in a county. You're looking at about 80,000 to about 100,000 per year for running a diversion program. That would include, everything that program coordinator would need, right? When you look at the cost of prosecuting simple misdemeanor charges per a person, you're looking at about 2,000 per a simple misdemeanor charge. And then when you look at how often we're prosecuting all the way to trial on a simple misdemeanor, it's about 10 of those a week. So that's $16,000 to $20,000 a week for all those cases. I mean, that estimate is about $1 million a year in cost for just charging. I'm talking simple misdemeanor, nonviolent, low-level offenses. And that cost is on the county. The state has a small amount of cost there. It's for the public defender cost. There are a lot of public defenders used in these cases. That's about $330 per person. So then you're looking at about $3,000 a week. And then in the total for that year, you're looking at about $150,000 for the state cost. So, and I'm giving you very low estimates on these. I'm going at the low end. So, there could be weeks where there's a lot more cost coming into each county.
And this is taxpayer cost. This is what taxpayers pay for.
Yes.
Okay.
These are cases where the fines are very low. So they're not going to cover the cost of the judge, the police. And often these are officers getting called in on overtime to come in on these cases. And we're talking overnight officers getting called in during the day 10 times a week. It's a lot of stress on the police that really doesn't need to be there.
So diversion actually is an investment for a community to reduce the cost of policing the community and improve the outcomes for the people in the community.
Yeah. The cost savings that I can't estimate are the human impact. So when you help a person deflect out of the criminal justice system, you're not just helping them and their future cost within the criminal justice system, you're also helping their families. You're helping their children and future generations, because there's a lot of data that proves that a child of an adult who's involved in the criminal justice system is very likely to do so themselves. So when you divert them out of that system and you keep them out of it, that child is going to be much more likely to not get involved in the criminal justice system. And so that's the savings that I can't estimate, but I think we can kind of wrap our heads around that a little bit.
What's the response from, say, police officers? Is it adding any extra work to them up front that may make it hard to add to what their already full responsibilities are? Or is it helping them cope with the load?
I think it has helped a lot. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from especially Ames PD. The smaller precincts, they often are naturally doing deflection. So they are a step ahead already, but that's because they're in a small community. They know a lot of these individuals that they are running into, and they know where Bob lives. They can get him home safely, versus a bigger community like Ames. The police really need some relief from some of these smaller, low-level issues. And we're offering them an opportunity to take some of that weight off immediately from just an interaction where there's an arrest made versus them diverting. They already save about 15 minutes on average, and they have much less paperwork.
What about the cost to the person, the offender? How does that affect what costs they might incur, if any?
Yeah. So when charges are dismissed on a diverted case, they still have to pay court costs. That is one cost that does not go away. But otherwise, they're saving a lot of money on fines. There's a lot of grants available for them to get treatment, so that even if they don't have insurance, we either will apply with them or there's some grant money to help them pay for that treatment. There's a lot of funds available that often don't get used, unfortunately, because people just aren't aware of all the resources that are available.
Now, when the communities are looking at programs like this around the country, how much of it is motivated simply by the fact that we can't put all the mental health patients in prisons?
Oh, a lot of it. I think that it's very frustrating for prosecutors and police alike to see the same people cycling in and out of the jail. These are people who have hearts. These are people who have family members with mental health and substance abuse issues. And so when they see these people that don't have any support cycling through, it's very frustrating. And up until recently, they didn't have a lot of options on where to direct this person or how to connect them with someone that can help.
Wow. Well, this is really good stuff. And we're going to take a short break, and we're going to invite Shelby to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration when she comes back. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All Mediacom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your Mediacom account. Not a Mediacom cable subscriber? Mediacom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Oh boy.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
The fact is, we use the internet for almost everything we do. Smart cage, feed beaker. So when the internet doesn't work the way it should, you don't work the way you should.
Kevin!
That's why more homes and businesses rely on Mediacom. Our fiber-powered network delivers 99.99% reliability. And with 650,000 miles of fiber, we have more paths of connection and more ways to avoid outages. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours for you to rely on.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we've talked about the impact of diversion on crime and public health. Let's see what insights and inspiration our guest, Shelby, has to share. Shelby, the floor is yours.
Yeah. One thing that really surprised me when doing this work was the amount of barriers that these participants face. Often there is a lack of housing involved. There's a lack of food security. Transportation is a major concern, especially when about 50% of Iowans are looking at, either having a barred or revoked license. And so just getting to the places you need to get these resources can be nearly impossible in the rural areas. And then when you look at a lack of understanding of the resources that are available, I will tell you as a case manager, it is so hard for me to keep up with what's available in our county, as well as what criteria the person needs to meet in order to qualify and what the disqualifiers are. And so just navigating that system alone is extremely daunting, and you can often get passed from one agency to the next in search of getting your needs met. And then I would say a lack of phone is a major concern. One great thing though is we have these programs to get free phones, but being able to find a person, have an address for this phone to be sent, and then helping them get it set up is still a task in itself. I'd say that there's a lack of options for a lot of resources. So if a person has a bad experience with the housing provider in our county, that is the only housing provider in our county. So they don't have an option to go somewhere else. Also, once you use your stay at a shelter in our county, you only get that once a year. You get 30 days. So when those 30 days are up, they will not help you the rest of the year. They cannot, based on their criteria. And so these are just some of the small, I would to say a small example of the barriers. Another major one that I see is people who are struggling with severe mental illness and or disability. I would say intellectual disability or physical disability. I've seen both, and navigating that system is even harder. I am SOAR certified in order to be able to help those people apply for disability, but it is an extensive process that takes years often to get approval for. So in the meantime, those individuals are still struggling. And, just filling out an application can be so overwhelming for a person who is homeless, struggling with PTSD, maybe still actively using. And if they aren't, they're just hurting in a lot of ways. And it's hard to be able to focus and have the capacity mentally to fill something like that out. And that's why we're here.
What about the reconnecting with family and friends? Because so often you don't want them to go back to the people they hung around with when they got into trouble. But it's hard to build new. I mean, you've got stigma involved. You get this chip on your shoulder that says you're not a good human being anymore, and you're trying to work through all that. How does diversion sort of complement the need for a human being to establish some new friends and really get the trust of their family back?
Yeah, I highly encourage my clients to go to NA and AA meetings. The community and the connections within those organizations are so strong, and they foster such a positive environment for individuals. It becomes another family. And through that, they are encouraged to reconnect, to make apologies, to make amends with the family, the blood family that they have hurt along the way with their addiction. And I always encourage this. And a big part of that is not expecting forgiveness in return. Just being able to put out your apology, try to make your amends, and then continue on your journey. I always tell my clients, you're not a bad person. You made bad decisions. There's a difference. And I think that when you allow those bad decisions to define you, it's a really self-limiting belief. And so that is a big part of what I do, is just positive encouragement, letting them know, like, I've been where they have been. And I think that sometimes that can be encouragement in itself, seeing another person who's done it, who's lived through it, who's come out the other side.
That's fantastic. And it's so great that you were able to come out the other side and invent yourself in a positive way to help our communities. We thank you for being here today. And we thank you all for joining us today. Check out our website, ahealthyiowa.org, and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.